Hello, my name is Adam Williamson, and in this video, myself and 3 others will be teaching you all about the Alamo. The Alamo early on was formed by Spanish settlers who built the Mission San Antonio de Valero, close by the present-day San Antonio. For 70 years, this building housed missionaries and Native American convicts until Spain turned it into a fort in 1793. They named it the Alamo. Mexico took over the Alamo after their independence from Spain in 1810. The Battle of the Alamo started on February 23, 1836 and ended on March 6 of the same year. In the decade before the Mexican-American War began, Texans working to secede from Mexico took over the Mexican fort, the Alamo. When these Texans took over the fort, they expected retaliation, and they sure got it. The 257 Texas Army volunteers took on a Mexican army of between 1,800 and 6,000 men. The Mexican army laid siege to the Alamo for 13 days until the volunteers could no longer go on.
The men who were in charge during the Battle of the Alamo were General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna on the Mexican side, and Commanders James Bowie and William Travis for Texas. General Santa Anna took over Mexico and worked to enforce the law set. He took over as dictator and threatened Americans in Texas with death. His threats escalated the situation to the Battle of the Alamo on February 23rd. Both commanders, William Travis and James Bowie, came in and took control of the Fort Alamo. Travis was the initial leader until Bowie was elected by the people. The famous frontiersman Davy Crockett also defended the Alamo as a Texan volunteer. Travis and Bowie saw no options for surrender, and they led by example. The Texans fought until the end, and General Santa Anna showed no mercy, killing all.
As we mentioned earlier, there were only 257 Texan defenders. Even if there were only 1,800 Mexican troops, the Mexicans outnumbered the volunteers 7-1. Legend has it that before the Mexicans arrived, Commander William Travis drew a line with his sword saying, "Those prepared to give their lives in freedom's cause, come over to me." All 257 volunteers crossed the line. General Santa Anna sent a Mexican troop on horse to the Alamo, but it was shot upon. On February 23rd, the Mexican force began their siege of the fort at 5 a.m. The volunteers held out for 14 days despite the numbers. The famous frontiersman James Bowie and Tennessee Congressman Davy Crockett were killed. The battle was mostly fought with the volunteers shooting with bayonets until overran by the Mexicans. Then it became a bloody massacre of guerrilla warfare. An infant child and his mother was killed. The only survivor was a slave who lived to tell the tales of the horror at the Alamo. The Mexicans too received casualties, between 600 and 1,600 men. The Alamo was stained with the blood of the martyrs who fought for Texas independence.
The legacy of the Alamo is what makes this one battle so significant. Even though the Texan defenders were greatly outnumbered, they decided to stay and fight. They fought until the end and killed around 600 Mexican attackers. Their will and skill in combat cemented their legacies as heroes of both Texas and America as a whole. After all the volunteers were killed, the American General Houston led an army and crushed the remaining Mexican forces. After Houston's army beat the Mexicans around the Alamo, the battle cry and phrase, "Remember the Alamo," came to be. This saying stuck to make sure those in the Mexican War remembered the sacrifices of the Alamo. Overall, remembering the Alamo is the least we can do for the men and women who lost their lives in battle. We remember the strength, will, and determination shown at the Alamo now and into the years to come.
Time out. What you are about to see is a short clip from a historical fiction movie titled The Alamo. This movie is fictional, but designed to give you context on the battle.
¡A la carga!
¡Adelante!
¡Adelante!
Anybody have any questions? Arden? Joe?